Let us know where you're watching from today as we dive into an extraordinary tale of principles, law, and unexpected wisdom that unfolded in a Texas federal courthouse. It's a story that proves sometimes the quietest voices carry the most authority, and that true legal genius can come from the most unexpected places. On what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday morning in April 2025, the marble halls of the Austin Federal Courthouse witnessed an encounter that would soon make headlines across the nation. Nolan Ryan, the legendary MLB pitcher known as much for his fastball as his unwavering principles, stood quietly in the security line, a small gold cross hanging visibly from his neck, the same cross his mother had given him 50 years ago. The morning sun streamed through the high windows, casting long shadows across the polished floors as Ryan made his way through security. At 76, he carried himself with the same quiet dignity that had marked his decades on the pitcher's mound. He was there for a routine property dispute hearing, something that should have been straightforward enough for a man who had built a business empire after his baseball career. Deputy James Wilson, manning the security checkpoint, recognized Ryan immediately. The bailiff had grown up watching the baseball legend's games, had memorized his stats, had even named his dog, Nolan, in tribute. But today, something was different. There was tension in the air, a subtle undercurrent that suggested this wouldn't be just another day in court. Sarah Martinez, the court clerk, was the first to notice Judge Miranda Hawthorne's reaction when Ryan entered courtroom 3B. The judge's eyes fixed immediately on the gold cross hanging from Ryan's neck, and her expression hardened. Judge Hawthorne, recently appointed and known for her strict interpretation of church-state separation, had already made waves with her controversial stance on religious symbols in her courtroom. Reporter Michael Chin, present for an unrelated case, sensed a story brewing. He watched as Judge Hawthorne's gaze lingered on Ryan's cross, noted how her fingers drummed against her bench, a telltale sign of her building displeasure that courthouse regulars had come to recognize. The tension in the room grew as Judge Hawthorne cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the quiet murmur of the courtroom. "Mr. Ryan, in my courtroom, we maintain strict neutrality. That religious symbol you're wearing, it needs to be removed or concealed." The room fell silent. Patricia Reynolds, the senior court administrator who had seen hundreds of judges come and go, felt her breath catch. In 30 years, she had never seen anyone challenge Nolan Ryan's integrity, let alone his right to wear a simple cross passed down from his mother. Thomas Bennett, Ryan's attorney, started to rise, but Ryan gently raised his hand, the same hand that had thrown 7 no-hitters in his legendary career. His voice, when it came, carried the quiet authority of a man who had faced down the greatest batters in baseball history without flinching. "Your Honor," Ryan spoke, his Texas drawl measured and respectful, "I mean no disrespect to this court or its principles. But this cross has a legal significance you might want to consider before making that request." Judge Hawthorne's eyebrows rose, her expression a mixture of surprise and skepticism. She had dealt with religious objections before, had heard every argument about First Amendment rights, but something in Ryan's calm demeanor gave her pause. Reverend David Thompson, seated in the gallery, watched with growing interest. He had known Ryan for years, had seen him handle pressure with the same unflappable dignity he was displaying now. But this was different. This wasn't a baseball diamond, this was a federal courtroom, and the stakes were higher than any game. Mark Stevens, the assistant district attorney observing the proceedings, leaned forward in his seat. In his years of prosecuting cases, he had developed an instinct for moments that would reshape legal precedent. Something told him this was one of those moments. Rachel Cooper, a civil rights attorney happening to be in court that day, found herself reaching for her notepad. She had argued dozens of religious freedom cases, but there was something different about this confrontation, something in Ryan's confident calm that suggested he knew something the judge didn't. The legendary pitcher stood straight, his bearing respectful but unwavering. "Your Honor, if you'll permit me to explain, this cross isn't just a religious symbol. It's registered as a trademark in all 50 states, part of my corporate brand and legal identity. Under Title 15 of the U.S. Code, specifically the Lanham Act, requiring its removal would constitute interference with legally protected intellectual property." The courtroom held its breath. Deputy Wilson, still standing by the door, fought to suppress a smile. He had expected many things from his childhood hero, but a masterclass in trademark law wasn't one of them. Judge Hawthorne's expression shifted, the certainty in her eyes giving way to something else, the look of a legal professional recognizing an unexpected challenge. She had prepared for constitutional arguments about religious freedom, had ready responses for First Amendment claims. But trademark law? That was an angle she hadn't anticipated. Sarah Martinez watched as the judge's fingers stopped their drumming, as her posture shifted ever so slightly. In her years as court clerk, she had learned to read these subtle signs of a judge reassessing their position. Michael Chen's pen flew across his notepad. This wasn't just a story about religion in the courtroom anymore. This was about the unexpected legal brilliance of a sports legend who had clearly done his homework. Thomas Bennett sat back, a quiet pride in his eyes. He had helped Ryan prepare for various legal challenges over the years, but this particular strategy had been entirely Ryan's idea. The baseball legend had spent his retirement years not just managing his business empire, but understanding the legal frameworks that protected it. The silence in the courtroom stretched, broken only by the soft sound of Judge Hawthorne rifling through her legal references. Finally, she looked up, meeting Ryan's steady gaze. "Mr. Ryan, would you be prepared to provide documentation of this trademark registration?" "Yes, Your Honor," Ryan replied, nodding to his attorney who already had the documents ready. Filed in 1999, renewed in 2019, with clear specification of the cross design as a key element of my personal brand and business identity. Patricia Reynolds watched as the judge examined the documents, noting how her expression changed from skepticism to professional respect. In all her years in the courthouse, she had never seen someone transform a religious freedom debate into a masterclass in intellectual property law. The morning sun had climbed higher now, its light creating a subtle golden glow around Ryan's cross, the very symbol that had just become the center of an unexpected legal discourse. But more than that, it had become a symbol of how wisdom can come in many forms, and how true legal genius often lies in seeing connections others might miss. As Judge Hawthorne studied the trademark documentation, the tension in the courtroom began to shift. This was no longer a confrontation between religious expression and secular authority. It had become a lesson in how deep understanding of the law can transform apparent conflicts into opportunities for mutual respect and understanding. The story of what happened next would soon spread through legal circles across the country, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful legal arguments come not from confrontation, but from finding unexpected paths through seemingly intractable conflicts. But for now, all eyes remained fixed on Judge Hawthorne, waiting to see how she would respond to this unexpected twist in what should have been a routine morning in court. The silence in courtroom 3B grew heavier as Judge Miranda Hawthorne carefully reviewed the trademark documentation before her. Through the tall courthouse windows, the morning sun continued its journey, casting long shadows across the judge's bench as she considered the legal curveball Nolan Ryan had just thrown her way. Thomas Bennett, Ryan's attorney, remained perfectly still, his expression neutral despite the growing anticipation in the room. He had witnessed many legal strategies in his career, but watching a baseball legend outmaneuver a federal judge with trademark law was something entirely new. Finally, Judge Hawthorne looked up from the documents, her expression a complex mixture of professional respect and lingering challenge. "Mr. Ryan," she began, her voice carrying the measured tone of someone choosing their words carefully, "while your trademark registration is indeed in order, this court must consider whether the religious nature of the symbol supersedes its commercial protection." Ryan stood quietly, his posture relaxed but attentive. Those who had seen him pitch recognized this stance. It was the same calm focus he had shown facing down batters in crucial moments. "Your Honor," he responded, his Texas drawl carrying a hint of warm authority, "if I may direct your attention to the Supreme Court's decision in Madel v. Tam, 2017. Sarah Martinez, the court clerk, noticed Judge Hawthorne's slight start of surprise. It wasn't often that a non-lawyer cited specific Supreme Court cases, let alone ones directly relevant to the matter at hand. In that case, Ryan continued, the court unanimously held that trademarks are private speech, not government speech. They specifically protected potentially controversial trademarks under First Amendment principles. My cross, as a registered trademark, falls squarely within that protection. Michael Chen's pen scratched rapidly across his notepad. The story had just gotten even better. A baseball legend wasn't just citing trademark law. He was building a sophisticated legal argument bridging intellectual property and constitutional rights. Judge Hawthorne leaned forward slightly, her interest clearly piqued. Mr. Ryan, are you suggesting that your trademark registration effectively creates a dual protection, both commercial and constitutional? Yes, Your Honor, Ryan replied, his voice carrying the same steady conviction that had made him a leader both on and off the field. The trademark registration establishes my legal right to display this symbol as part of my commercial identity. The First Amendment protects both my religious expression and my commercial speech. They're intertwined, much like the history of this cross itself. Deputy James Wilson, still standing by the door, watched in amazement as his childhood hero seamlessly wove together constitutional law, trademark protection, and personal history. The bailiff had seen countless attorneys argue before Judge Hawthorne, but few had managed to command the courtroom with such quiet authority. Rachel Cooper, the civil rights attorney, was furiously taking notes. In her years of religious freedom cases, she had never considered using trademark law as a parallel protection for religious symbols. Ryan wasn't just defending his right to wear a cross, he was potentially creating new legal precedent. Mark Stevens, the assistant district attorney, found himself nodding unconsciously. The legal reasoning was sound, the precedents well chosen, the argument carefully constructed. Ryan had found a way to transform what could have been a confrontational religious rights case into a sophisticated discussion of overlapping legal protections. Patricia Reynolds, watching from her administrator's desk, noticed how the other attorneys in the courtroom had stopped pretending to work on their own cases. Everyone was watching this unexpected legal seminar being delivered by a man better known for his fastball than his legal expertise. Judge Hawthorne picked up her pen, making careful notes. Mr. Ryan, let's explore this further. Your trademark registration specifically includes the cross design as part of your personal brand. Can you elaborate on how this commercial use interacts with its religious significance? Ryan nodded, his response ready. Your Honor, the intersection of commercial and religious expression has been recognized by courts repeatedly. In my case, the cross represents both my faith and my public identity. It appears on my business documents, my charitable foundation's materials, and my corporate branding. Requiring its removal would not only infringe on my religious freedom but would also constitute interference with my legally protected commercial identity. Thomas Bennett watched his client with quiet pride. They had discussed various legal strategies over the years, but Ryan's deep understanding of the principles involved had always impressed him. The baseball legend had approached law with the same dedication he had once brought to studying opposing batters. Reverend David Thompson, sitting in the gallery, smiled softly. He had known Ryan for years, had seen his dedication to both his faith and his business principles. Now he was watching those elements come together in an unexpected way, creating a legal argument that could protect religious expression through commercial law. Furthermore, Your Honor, Ryan continued, the Supreme Court's decision in Burwell v. Hobby Lobby established that closely held corporations can have protected religious expressions. My business enterprises, which are closely associated with my personal identity and this trademarked symbol, fall within that protection as well. The morning sun had reached its peak now, streaming directly through the windows and catching the gold cross at Ryan's neck. The light seemed to emphasize both its religious significance and its commercial value, the very duality at the heart of his argument. Judge Hawthorne sat back slightly, her expression thoughtful. Mr. Ryan, you've presented an interesting legal framework. But let me ask you this. Doesn't the commercial protection of religious symbols potentially trivialize their spiritual significance? Ryan's response came with the same careful consideration he had once given to crucial pitches. Your Honor, I would argue the opposite. By recognizing and protecting religious symbols in multiple legal contexts, we acknowledge their deep significance in all aspects of life, personal, spiritual, and yes, commercial. The law's protection doesn't diminish their meaning, it recognizes their fundamental importance to individual identity. Sarah Martinez noticed how the judge's expression had shifted from skepticism to engagement. This was no longer about enforcing a rule about religious symbols in court. It had become a sophisticated discussion about the intersection of commercial law, constitutional rights, and personal identity. Michael Chen had stopped writing, his pen hovering above his notepad. He realized he was watching more than just an interesting courthouse confrontation. He was witnessing the creation of a potential legal precedent, one that could reshape how religious expression is protected in public spaces. Your Honor, Ryan added, his voice carrying the weight of personal experience, this cross has been part of my public identity for over 50 years. It's appeared in photographs, broadcasts, and business meetings. It's been present for every contract I've signed, every business deal I've made. Requiring its removal now would not only violate my religious freedom and trademark rights but would also force me to present a public identity inconsistent with my established legal and commercial presence. The argument was elegant in its simplicity, yet profound in its implications. Ryan had taken what could have been a confrontational religious rights case and transformed it into a thoughtful exploration of how different areas of law can work together to protect individual rights. Judge Hawthorne looked down at her notes, then back at the documents proving Ryan's trademark registration. The room waited, the silence broken only by the soft rustle of papers and the distant sound of activity in the courthouse beyond the doors. The next few moments would determine more than just whether Nolan Ryan could wear his cross in court. They would potentially establish a new understanding of how commercial law could protect religious expression, how personal identity could be legally safeguarded through multiple, overlapping protections. As the judge prepared to respond, the atmosphere in courtroom 3B was charged with anticipation. Everyone present understood they were witnessing something remarkable, a moment when baseball wisdom, legal knowledge, and personal conviction had combined to create something potentially revolutionary in American jurisprudence. Judge Miranda Hawthorne's chambers had never felt quite so crowded, though only a handful of people were present. The morning's unexpected legal discourse had prompted her to call a brief recess, gathering key participants for what she knew would be a pivotal discussion. Nolan Ryan stood near the window, the contested cross catching the late morning light, while Thomas Bennett sat quietly in one of the leather chairs usually reserved for private conferences. Mr. Ryan, Judge Hawthorne began, her tone notably different from her earlier courtroom challenge. I've been on the bench for 15 years, and I have to admit, you've presented one of the most innovative legal arguments I've encountered regarding religious expression in court. Sarah Martinez, present to document the proceedings, watched as the judge's professional demeanor softened slightly. It was the look she got when encountering a legal argument that genuinely intrigued her. Your Honor, Ryan responded, his voice carrying the same quiet confidence that had marked his earlier presentation. I've always believed that the law, like baseball, is about finding the right approach to each situation. Sometimes that means looking at familiar rules from a new angle. Mark Stevens, the assistant district attorney who had been invited to offer his perspective, leaned forward. The precedential implications here are fascinating. By linking trademark protection with religious expression, Mr. Ryan has potentially created a new framework for protecting individual rights. Rachel Cooper, the civil rights attorney whose expertise Judge Hawthorne had specifically requested, nodded in agreement. It's brilliant, really. By establishing the cross as a protected trademark, Mr. Ryan has created a legal shield that extends beyond traditional First Amendment arguments. It's not just about religious freedom anymore. It's about protected commercial speech, personal branding, and established business identity. The judge moved to her desk, picking up the trademark documentation she had been studying. Mr. Ryan, your registration is remarkably thorough. The cross is specifically described as an integral part of your public identity, your business operations, and your charitable work. You've essentially created a legal triple play. A slight smile touched Ryan's face at the baseball reference. In baseball, Your Honor, you learn that the best defense often comes from being well prepared. When I registered this trademark, I made sure it would protect all aspects of my public identity. Thomas Bennett spoke up for the first time since entering the chambers. Your Honor, if I may, Mr. Ryan's approach here could actually help courts navigate similar cases in the future. By establishing clear legal protection through trademark law, we create an objective standard that complements constitutional religious protections. Outside the chamber windows, the courthouse square was filling with curious onlookers. Word had spread about the morning's events, and Michael Chen's preliminary report had already gone viral. The story of a baseball legend outmaneuvering a federal judge with sophisticated legal argument had captured public imagination. Judge Hawthorne settled into her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Mr. Ryan, your argument raises interesting questions about the intersection of commercial and religious rights. Have you considered how this might apply to other religious symbols and identities?" "I have, Your Honor," Ryan replied, his Texas drawl carrying a note of careful consideration. "While my situation involves a Christian cross, the same principles could protect any religious symbol that's been incorporated into a person's legal and commercial identity. It's about recognizing that in modern life, our religious expression often intertwines with our public and professional presence." Patricia Reynolds, who had been asked to join the conference, watched the judge's reaction carefully. In her decades as court administrator, she had developed a keen sense for moments when legal history was being made. "The beauty of Mr. Ryan's argument," Rachel Cooper added, "is that it provides a neutral, secular basis for protecting religious expression. By anchoring the protection in trademark law, we create a clear legal standard that doesn't require courts to evaluate religious validity or sincerity." Judge Hawthorne nodded slowly, her legal mind clearly processing the implications. "Mr. Ryan, when you stepped into my courtroom this morning, I assumed we were heading for a conventional First Amendment dispute. Instead, you've presented us with an elegant solution to a complex legal challenge." The late morning sun had shifted, casting different shadows across the chamber. The light caught Ryan's cross again, seeming to emphasize both its spiritual significance and its legal protection. "Your Honor," Ryan said, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "in baseball, I learned that the most effective strategies often come from combining different elements in unexpected ways. The same principle applies here. By combining trademark protection with constitutional rights, we create a stronger, more comprehensive legal protection." Mark Stevens shuffled through his notes. "The precedential value here is significant. This could provide a framework for protecting religious expression in various professional contexts, not just courtrooms. And it does so," Rachel Cooper added, "without requiring courts to make decisions about religious doctrine or authenticity. The trademark registration provides an objective, legally verifiable basis for protection." Judge Hawthorne stood, moving to the window that overlooked the courthouse square. The growing crowd below was a testament to the public interest in this unexpected legal drama. "Mr. Ryan, you've done more than defend your right to wear a cross in my courtroom. You've potentially created a new path for protecting religious expression in professional settings." Sarah Martinez noticed how the atmosphere in the chamber had shifted from the tense confrontation of earlier to something more collaborative, a shared exploration of new legal territory. "Your Honor," Ryan responded, "in my years in baseball, I learned that sometimes the best victories come not from confrontation, but from finding common ground. This isn't about challenging the court's authority, it's about showing how different areas of law can work together to protect individual rights." Thomas Bennett nodded approvingly. His client had just transformed what could have been a contentious religious rights case into a sophisticated discussion of legal principles and their practical application. "The implications for future cases are significant," Judge Hawthorne mused, turning back to face the room. "This could provide a template for handling similar situations where religious expression intersects with professional identity and commercial rights." Outside the chambers, the usual bustle of courthouse activity continued, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation. Everyone knew that something significant was happening behind those doors, something that could reshape how American courts handle religious expression in professional settings. "Mr. Ryan," the judge continued, "your argument has forced me to reconsider my initial position. You've demonstrated that the intersection of religious and commercial rights can create new opportunities for legal protection rather than conflict." The legendary pitcher stood quietly, his posture relaxed but attentive. He had faced many crucial moments in his career, but this one carried different stakes. the potential to create legal precedent that could protect others' rights for years to come. "I believe," Judge Hawthorne said, her voice carrying the weight of judicial authority, "that we have an opportunity here to establish a thoughtful precedent. One that recognizes the complex reality of how religious expression exists alongside professional identity in modern life." The room fell silent, everyone present understanding that they were witnessing a moment of legal evolution. Nolan Ryan, known for his fastball and his no-hitters, had just pitched a perfect game in the legal arena. "When we return to the courtroom," the judge continued, "I intend to issue a ruling that acknowledges the validity of your argument. More than that, I want to articulate a framework that other courts can consider when facing similar questions." Sarah Martinez's pen moved quickly across her notepad, capturing the historic moment. The morning's confrontation over a simple cross had evolved into something far more significant, a potential landmark decision in the ongoing dialogue between religious freedom and professional life. As the group prepared to return to the courtroom, there was a shared sense that they had participated in something remarkable. A baseball legend had not only defended his own rights but had potentially created a new path for protecting religious expression in professional settings. The story of what happened next would soon spread through legal circles across the country, a testament to the power of innovative legal thinking and the unexpected wisdom that can come from a lifetime of excellence in any field. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through courtroom 3B as the participants filed back in from Judge Hawthorne's chambers. The gallery had filled during the recess, word having spread through the courthouse about the morning's unexpected legal discourse. Michael Chen noticed how the atmosphere had shifted from the tense confrontation of earlier to something more anticipatory, as if everyone present sensed they were about to witness a significant moment in legal history. Nolan Ryan took his place at the counsel table, the contested cross still hanging visibly at his neck. Thomas Bennett sat beside him, arranging his notes with careful precision, though both men knew the most crucial arguments had already been made. The morning's impromptu legal seminar had evolved into something far more significant than a simple dispute over religious expression in court. Judge Miranda Hawthorne ascended to her bench with measured steps, her expression carrying the weight of careful consideration. Sarah Martinez, positioned at her clerk's station, noticed how the judge's earlier skepticism had been replaced by something else, a look of professional respect and scholarly interest. "Before we proceed with Mr. Ryan's scheduled hearing," Judge Hawthorne began, her voice carrying clearly through the now crowded courtroom, "I wish to address the matter of religious symbols in this court, specifically as it pertains to Mr. Ryan's trademark-protected cross." Deputy James Wilson, standing at his post by the door, watched his childhood hero with undisguised admiration. The man who had dominated baseball with his fastball had just demonstrated mastery in an entirely different arena. "This court," the judge continued, "initially raised concerns about religious symbols in keeping with traditional interpretations of church-state separation. However, Mr. Ryan has presented a compelling legal framework that merits careful consideration and, I believe, establishes important precedent." Rachel Cooper, seated in the gallery, pulled out her notepad again. As a civil rights attorney, she recognized that the judge's words were laying the groundwork for what could become a landmark decision in religious expression cases. "Mr. Ryan's argument," Judge Hawthorne explained, "demonstrates how modern jurisprudence must evolve to recognize the complex intersection of religious expression, commercial rights, and personal identity. His innovative use of trademark law provides a secular, legally grounded framework for protecting religious expression in professional settings." Mark Stevens, the assistant district attorney, nodded approvingly. The judge was doing more than just ruling on a single case. She was establishing a template for handling similar situations in the future. "The court notes several key points," the judge continued. "First, Mr. Ryan's cross is properly registered as a trademark, specifically described as integral to his public and professional identity. Second, under Madel versus Tam, this trademark registration constitutes protected private speech. Third, following Burwell versus Hobby Lobby, the religious significance of this symbol is recognized even in commercial contexts." Patricia Reynolds watched as several law clerks in the gallery furiously took notes. In her decades at the courthouse, she had seen many important rulings, but few that so elegantly bridged different areas of law. Furthermore, Judge Hawthorne added, Mr. Ryan's argument demonstrates how trademark protection can provide objective, legally verifiable grounds for protecting religious expression without requiring courts to evaluate religious doctrine or authenticity. This creates a valuable precedent for handling similar cases in the future. The afternoon light caught Ryan's cross again, seeming to emphasize both its spiritual significance and its newfound legal importance. The baseball legend sat quietly, his posture relaxed but attentive, as the judge continued to outline the implications of his innovative legal argument. Therefore, the judge declared, this court finds that Mr. Ryan's right to wear his cross is protected not only by First Amendment religious freedom guarantees but also by federal trademark law. The dual nature of this protection creates a compelling legal framework that acknowledges the complex reality of religious expression in professional settings. Michael Chen's pen flew across his notepad. The story had evolved from a simple courthouse confrontation into something far more significant, a potential watershed moment in the ongoing dialogue between religious freedom and professional life. Moreover, Judge Hawthorne continued, this court recognizes that Mr. Ryan's approach could provide guidance for protecting other religious symbols and expressions in professional contexts. The framework he has presented offers a balanced approach that respects both religious freedom and secular legal principles. Thomas Bennett sat back slightly, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face. His client had done more than win a simple legal argument. He had potentially reshaped how courts would handle religious expression cases for years to come. Let the record show, the judge added, that this ruling establishes several important principles. First, that trademark protection can provide additional legal grounds for religious expression when properly registered and documented. Second, that the intersection of commercial and religious rights can create complementary rather than conflicting protections. And third, that modern jurisprudence must evolve to recognize how religious identity interfaces with professional life. Reverend David Thompson, still seated in the gallery, smiled softly. He had known Nolan Ryan as a man of faith for many years, but watching him defend that faith through sophisticated legal argument had revealed yet another dimension to his character. This court therefore rules, Judge Hawthorne declared, that Mr. Ryan's cross may remain visible during these proceedings and any future court appearances. Furthermore, this ruling shall serve as precedent for similar cases involving properly documented religious symbols that form part of an individual's protected commercial identity. The tension that had filled the courtroom that morning had transformed into something else, a shared sense of having witnessed an important moment in legal history. A baseball legend had not only defended his own rights but had potentially created a new path for protecting religious expression in professional settings. Mr. Ryan, the judge added, her tone carrying a note of personal respect, this court commends your innovative legal thinking and your contribution to evolving jurisprudence in this area. You've demonstrated that protecting religious expression doesn't require choosing between faith and law. It requires understanding how different legal protections can work together. Sarah Martinez noticed how several attorneys in the gallery were already pulling out their phones, presumably to research trademark registrations for their own clients with religious symbols. The implications of this ruling would likely ripple through the legal community for years to come. As we proceed with your scheduled hearing, Judge Hawthorne concluded, let this morning's discussion serve as a reminder that the law is not static. It evolves through thoughtful argument and innovative application of existing principles to new situations. Mr. Ryan, you've provided a valuable service to this court and to the broader legal community. The afternoon sun had begun its descent, casting a warm glow through the courtroom windows. The light caught Ryan's cross one final time, transforming it from a point of contention into a symbol of how religious expression and professional identity could coexist under the protection of law. As the court prepared to move on to the originally scheduled hearing, those present understood they had witnessed something remarkable. Nolan Ryan, known for his record-breaking career in baseball, had just secured another kind of legacy, a legal precedent that could help protect religious expression in professional settings for generations to come. The story would soon spread beyond the courthouse, beyond legal circles, becoming a testament to how wisdom can come from unexpected sources, and how sometimes the most effective legal arguments arise not from confrontation, but from finding innovative ways to bridge seemingly conflicting principles. In the end, what had begun as a challenge to a simple cross had evolved into something far more significant, a moment when baseball wisdom, legal knowledge, and personal conviction had combined to create new possibilities for protecting individual rights in modern America. As Nolan Ryan finally turned his attention to his scheduled hearing, his cross hanging securely at his neck, he had demonstrated once again that true greatness often lies not in power, but in the wisdom to find unexpected solutions to complex challenges.